Good morning, everyone. My name is Troy Seiler, and I'm with the WestBred wheat team. Today, we're in beautiful Fisher, Minnesota at the AgriMAX virtual plot tour. I also have with me Grant Mehring, our technical product manager, who will walk us through in just a bit on the WestBred varieties. To start off, I'd like to talk a little bit about wheat acreage. Wheat acreage in the United States right now is the lowest that it's been since it has been recorded by USDA, and that is the year 1919. So in local Minnesota, we are down about 150,000 acres. In North Dakota, we are down about 600,000 acres. So that is a lot. Why is wheat acres down? Mainly due to commodity prices. And what is the best way to work your way out of a down market? Well, it starts with variety selection and management. And we're going to talk about that today. Grant, would you like to walk us through the varieties?
I absolutely would. Well, Troy is right. When we're growing a few less wheat acres, we need to maximize the return on investment, the production of those wheat acres. And at WestBred, we start with the varieties. We pride ourselves in a breeding program that has great genetics, great germplasm, leading to great varieties. But the varieties are just one thing. It's the management throughout. It's the fertility, the herbicides, the fungicides, and the way we like to grow wheat, growing it to maximum production. So I'm going to talk about all of that today. The first thing I really like to hit on, though, is we're looking at a variety trial that AgriMAX does every year. Data. How do you, the farmer, select different varieties to try on your farm? Well, we have so many different types of data out there. We've got the small plots that come from companies like Bayer, that come from the universities, University of Minnesota, NDSU. Small plot data is the start of it. But then you go up to a little bit bigger acreage. We have on-farm strip trials. At WestBred, we put out dozens of big 1 acre, 2 acre strips of varieties across multiple landscapes. And what does that do for you? It gets you yield results by variety with farmers' management, with their air seeders, their fertility program, both starters and as applied, their herbicide, their fungicide, and the overall landscape that they're farming on. Not the garden, like small plots, but the tough acreage like you might see out there across fields. Next, we know that as a farmer, you probably have side-by-sides out in the field. Whenever you ran out of that semi-load of seed, you might switch. Sometimes it's in the same field. We call that side-by-sides. You gain some insight just by saying, how does this variety do on the left side of the field versus the right side of the field? Going a little bit bigger, you're going to make variety selection based on the field results. You've got fields of these different varieties. How did it do on your farm? Sure, different fields are different, but as you understand your farm so well, you know that, okay, this variety was a little better than that one based on how they did in your operation. And the last way you're probably going to decide on data is at the coffee shop. You've got neighbors, you've got time to talk with them. How did different varieties do in the landscape you're growing, in the area you know, and then you start to make good decisions with all of that information.
But Grant, you've talked about using local data where growers are doing strip trials for WestBred and also using small plot data from AgriMAX. Why shouldn't I just go off of university trials?
Yes, well, that's a really great thought process. You might just look at one type of data to make all your decisions. And in the past in wheat, it really has been the universities. North Dakota State has been doing variety testing for so long. Same with Minnesota. But here's the thought process. In the small plot trial, are they managing for yield like you would be doing in your farm? Are they putting on heavy fertility loads? Are they always applying probably a high rate of fungicide, maybe 2 fungicides, even 3 fungicides? And does that data represent from the small plots at a university how you are farming in the field? So that's why I would really recommend using some of that small plot data at the universities, but then taking it to the farm level, looking at strip trials, looking at fields where you're managing how you like to manage, and you see how varieties really go from there based on yield, protein, lodging, and disease. And I think it's really important. Moving on, why should we pick more than just one single wheat variety on the farm? Troy?
Very important. Great question. When you select corn and soybean varieties, do you select just one corn hybrid or one soybean variety? No, you need genetic diversity, and you also need diversity in maturity. Wheat is no different. farmers have a propensity to select varieties based on truckloads. And a lot of times it's based on convenience. That is the wrong method for doing that. You need, just like row crops, at least 3 varieties on your farm for that diversity. Again, genetic diversity and also diversity of maturity.
So important. And when I get into these WestBred varieties in just a little bit, I'm going to key in on why you might want to consider 2 or 3 WestBreds in your lineup, or why you might need to add in even a different variety. But there's reasons to select each variety. You shouldn't just be trying to hit the home run with one variety. You should be balancing that with maturity, lodging, disease, yield, protein. Because no variety does the best every year. Just not the case. All right. Really important, what I'd like to talk with you about today, before I get into the varieties, harvest is coming up. It's sooner than later here because we've been pretty warm. I want to talk about what are you going to learn when you harvest your wheat. I think this is so cool. You have that opportunity to sit in the combine different varieties, different fields, or sit in a truck, drive that seed around, and just understand how did the varieties do on your farm. So what are the things you're going to be looking for? Well, you're sitting in the combine looking at your fields. How is the lodging situation? Is it so bad that I have to only combine one direction, like sometimes does happen? How fast is my combine operating? Am I chugging along as fast as I like, or is lodging causing me to combine slower? Very important. Looking at how the seed is coming out. Are there yellow bellies? Yellow bellies mean maybe I didn't quite have enough nitrogen in there, or I lost nitrogen due to the rainfall, such as has probably been happening up in far northwestern Minnesota, where we've had over 20 inches of rain so far this summer and spring. Also, how is the seed looking for scab? Scab being the #1 disease, we'll get into in a little bit. Do I have shrunken kernels? Do I have scabby kernels? Or do I have nice, plump, vigorous kernels? That's a big difference. As you're combining, how does the field look? Do you see pockets of orange, gray off color? That orange means bacterial leaf streak. You'll see orange chaff as you're combining. You have hot spots of bacterial leaf streak, a bad disease that can really only be controlled by varieties. If you see gray or white, you're probably dealing with some kind of stress such as waterlogging or drown out. But looking at your fields and learning as you harvest, so important. And then at the end of the day, of course, it's how do your varieties yield and have protein when you go to sell them. And of course, the quality down the line from there as well. But really taking a few samples of each field and looking at protein, looking at how did your yield maps come, whether you're looking at your own yield monitors, Climate Field View, or just tickets from your scale. How did they yield? Using all that information just on your farm. If you have 4 varieties growing, when you really observe all 4 of them, you can then decide, all right, these are the 3 I'm going to keep, and this is the one I'm going to discard, and I'm going to try a new variety from one of the companies, such as WestBred, to really keep pushing that yield production upwards.
So Grant, what you're saying is really when you're harvesting, that's the best time to determine and evaluate your wheat varieties. And it's not just based on yield alone.
That is so true, Troy. A lot of times we might think, not any fault to this, but I'm not really going to make any variety decisions, what I'm going to grow next year, until those booklets come out in October, November, December, and I see a few presentations. Then I'm going to make a decision. No. What Troy is saying is right. You can make so many good inferences off the combine, and in the next couple days after harvest, when it's fresh in your mind, you really know what's happening out there.